we are back again with Miss Alexis Glenn, the perfect math teacher. And I don't know if perfect is the word, none of us are perfect, but really, really good math teacher. Last episode, we talked about the strategies that she would employ to kind of reach her kids in her classroom. But I want to dig a little bit deeper, something more relatable to parents and to other teachers about that kid that just does not want to give, like the one that makes you rethink your career. I want to pick your brain on that kid and how you kind of handle that situation.
Okay. So for one, there were like multiple kids within my few years of teaching, but one specifically, we're going to call him John. John transferred into my class from another teacher, and based off conversations with the previous teacher and looking at his previous grades, he was a behavioral kid or behavioral challenged kid. And then also his grades didn't seem like he was being successful in math.
And I don't want to interrupt you right there. Was it more of him not liking math or being challenged by math, or was it him not liking the teacher?
Okay, so throughout our challenges with John, I finally had to like sit him down and we had a discussion about it. And from observation and the conversation, it was most likely the teacher. Mm-hmm. She was one of those. I'm not going to say that. He presented the fact that she didn't give him enough attention. Mm-hmm. And like he would say, when I needed help, she would go to the other kid. Or when he raised his hand to answer a question, she wouldn't pick on him. That's like his words. Mm-hmm. But that was like a couple of days after he had moved in my class. But like as observation, because I love to give a new kid a clean slate, even though I like may know his history or her history.
Which is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. So I just observed him. I kind of asked him, hey, where are you at? What did you learn? Where are you guys at? But then like the next day he would come in, put his head down. He was just not very a positive student, not happy. And then one day he just gave me tons and tons of attitude. And he was actually the first kid I like kicked out of my class. I was like, you can't stay here.
You remember that? That's
yes,
crazy.
Like because it was the first time, and I was like, I never wanted to be that teacher where I had to kick a student out. Mm-hmm. But I felt so bad after that because I was like, I maybe got a little impatient with him and frustrated, and I took it out on him. So the next day, I called him, or I didn't call him in, but I held him back from recess or lunch, and I was like, hey, I apologize for kicking you out. This is what you were doing, and this is how I felt. But now we just had a conversation, and that kind of really turned the script. He tried more, and I made sure that I gave him attention that he needed. Mm-hmm. And like he came out of my class with a C, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, like, what was his grades like before? What was his math grade like before he got to your classroom?
It was like an F or a D. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, just even though some people may not think C's are okay, from him being a D, F student to a C average, I was okay with that. Mm-hmm. And
that's good.
Yeah.
So let's say the conversation with the parents. How was that like?
It really depends on the parent. Mm-hmm.
Because I know you get a lot of parents sometimes who don't really understand what that child does at school.
Yes.
And then they'll blame the school, and then they'll blame the teacher, but not really give the accountability that the child deserves. How was that conversation with the parent?
Ooh, that's a very frustrating conversation, but also you just have to kind of know the parent who you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm. Did you know his parent, John's parent?
I did. And she was very not as active with his education. Mm-hmm. He kind of just like, well, he is who he is. Or she just shrugged his attitude and his behavior off. Mm-hmm. And kind of blamed it on their family situation. And which is okay. I get like a lot of kids have family situations that they bring into school and it affects their education and their learning ability. But I didn't think I needed her to have more accountability, more encouraging and support for him. Mm-hmm. And like to hold him accountable because he's a really smart kid. He just needed to be challenged and pushed to the limit to like do what's expected of him.
And see, that's kind of the purpose of the whole purpose of this podcast is to kind of give light to what actually happens in the classroom, especially to parents, because I know you as an educator, myself as an educator, we kind of see the ins and out, but parents don't really get to see every day what's really happening, right?
Yeah.
And you give all of these strategies, all of these techniques to try to reach their kid, and then when you fall short, the blame kind of gets put back on you.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the question I think now has went from parents asking the student, why is your grade a F in this class, to the teacher, why is this kid's grade an F in your class?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that leads me to my next question. When it comes down to that question, why is this kid failing your class? Oh, he's passing everybody else's class, but why is he failing your class? How do you respond to that?
Documentation. I start there. Once I see a kid who is getting on a path of not so well behavior or achieving in the way I want him to, or I want her to, I document, every time they go to the bathroom, maybe not every time they go to the bathroom, but kind of keep a track of that, how they're participating in class, if they are participating in class. And then I present that to the parent. Now it's up to them how they take those observations. But and then sometimes, I'm not going to lie, maybe the student just doesn't respond to my teaching. And then again, that's on my part, having to know the student and then try to learn what works best for them.
And what do you do to get to know your students? I know, like, in the beginning of the school year, you have like the get to know you activities. But me personally, I don't think that asking a kid, hey, would you rather do this or would you rather do that? And that kind of gives you a surface level of knowing that student. But what do you do to kind of dig into a student for real, like getting to know them outside of, hey, do you like this or do you not like this? I know one thing that I do is I always try to find my kids who are interested in the same stuff that I am, or try to find some of their interests, and I get into that outside of school. Like, I have students who still now that have graduated that I still go fishing with. We might talk on the phone, we might message on Instagram, Facebook, whatever the case is. So what do you do to get to know your students past the surface level?
Conversation. Any chance I get where it's not math related or academic related, I talk to them. Middle schoolers are a blast to talk to.
Oh yeah,
because
they're funny.
They'll give you it all. But and then just through observation, because I have some kids who love to doodle in class. So I'll make sure I incorporate some kind of drawing, pencil, writing activity to help them, get engaged with the content. The kids who love music, I want to bring music into the classroom. My number one goal is to do a kids video. You know what I'm saying? Little kids video. They pick a concept and then they rap about it and do a whole music video. I want to do that so bad, but I just need steps to do that. But it's stuff like that, just knowing what they like.
Kids want to rap now.
Exactly, and then but they're so afraid. They're so afraid. They're like, no, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, come on.
But I think if you kind of talk with parents will help you with that, because parents really want to see the best come out of their kids, and I think sometimes you have parents who don't know how to get the best out of their kids either. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it's a challenge on both ends, and I think sometimes the frustration builds when you know that this kid can do something, but they're just not giving it to you.
Exactly.
And that's where the relationship between the educator and the parent has to, kind of have to be nourished a little bit. So for me, I think contacting those parents, talking to those parents, because they know their kid better than you ever know your kid. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think if you have any ideas that you want to do, talk with parents. Parents will, in a lot of cases, help you get to where you want to get with their kid.
I get that. That totally makes sense. I kind of feel like I miss an opportunity with that idea, because if you don't communicate with parents first, maybe a couple weeks or a couple days right after the parent-teacher conference, the relationship is gone.
Yep.
And then now they're just another face that you'll see in the next parent conference, or if their student is acting out or having troubles with their grades. And then when you come to that, is that when that's your first encounter with the next time you encounter the parent, it's kind of off-putting because they
real awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
how can I ask you for help when you're mad at me for, or mad at your child and mad about their grade? So I feel like maybe next year or, this semester, since it's a new semester, just reaching out to parents as many as I can, just to be like, hey, thinking of some new ideas, maybe starting off with some good footing with a parent. You just made me think of that, and I like that.
So I kind of, I'm still going on. So I kind of want to talk to the parents in this point, because you talked about a project.
Mm-hmm.
So, with the not parents, I lied, teachers.
Mm-hmm.
She is a math teacher, and I want any of the math teachers who might listen or might watch this video to kind of message myself or message Alexis about some of the ideas that you have that you've employed in your classroom. But I do want to ask you this: you've been teaching how long now?
This will be my fifth year. This is my fifth year.
Fifth year.
Yeah.
So what projects have you done so far that have been successful? And then we'll talk about some of the ones that were not so successful.
Okay. One basic one is like the review project, where I let them pick a concept that we've learned and then they have to reteach it. That one's enjoyable. It's only enjoyable when they like actually have the notes or like remember what they're trying to teach. But luckily, we have our Avid binder this year, so that'll be something to look out for. But my favorite is the end of the year one. That's when like testing is over with and I just need them to have something to do. And I've done the career and budget project.
What is that? Career and budget? When you say budget, I like money. When you say budget,
yeah,
tell me about it.
Okay, so they have to basically plan out their life after high school. So they have
Parents take note to this one.
Yeah, they have to tell me what college they're going to, how much the tuition is, tell me about their family. Do they see themselves married with children? How many? And then they have to like go in and say like, hey, do we want cable? And then how much does that cost? Or do we want to buy our house? How much is the mortgage? And then they have to like plan out where their money goes. Mm-hmm. And if they choose to save and daycare and just a bunch of stuff that like
real life stuff.
Yeah. And they have to budget out and make sure they know their money, like know how to properly spend their money.
I had a conversation with Coco about that. He was telling me about something similar he did, and he was talking about this kid was telling him like, yeah, man, I'm gonna have this big monster truck. I'm gonna have this big monster house. I'm gonna do this to the truck. I'm gonna do this to my house. I'm gonna do that. And then when he actually put it down in front of him, all of the expenses that come with houses and cars and stuff like that, he said his face just dropped. Like, like how are you gonna pay for all of this? And I think that's real. And that's where knowing how to do math, knowing how to be good at math comes in to real life stuff, because it's really important.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have to be able to take numbers and understand where these numbers are going to lead you financially. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Once you graduate at high school, because I think after high school, every kid doesn't have the same situation, but for a lot of our kids, mom and dad is taking care of you. But once you get to college, you kind of have a little bit more freedom, mm-hmm. right? You're kind of on your own, because it does get tough. Now you have a tuition bill, right? You got food, and if you decide to live on your own, you have to have a car, all of that stuff. I think learning and talking about that stuff in middle school is extremely important, especially with our kids growing up much, much faster now, being exposed to so much with the internet now.
Exactly. I think it's funny because they'll tell me that, like what they want to do in their career, but it's just like for instance, one kid would be like, I just really don't want to do math, but then say they want to be an accountant. Like I'm like, but you don't like math. Like, why are you choosing that career? And it's like because it has money. And I'm like, yeah, but how about let's focus on something that you actually do like, or that you're successful in, or can be successful in. But it's little stuff like that makes it enjoyable, and then they get to present it to the class, and then having them present to the class it's a joy, because they get excited about what they want to do and how much money they're gonna make. So I really like that project.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the project that did not work. So I'll share one of my stories with you. So I'm a science guy, right? My first year teacher, and I can say this now because I'm a lot better now. But my first year teaching, I taught everything wrong. Like, and and I didn't realize it until the second when I actually learned how to teach, because my first year teaching, it was like, okay, you got the job, go teach. And I'm sitting there like, what in the heck am I doing? And then when I get to the end of my first year, and get into the summer of my second year, like, okay, I want to plan and see what's going on to, how am I going to address the second group?
Right.
That's when I realized that I taught everything completely wrong. It's like, oh my God. So my first year, I taught tectonic plates, and then so we did this project with volcanoes, and the kids made all kind of cool volcanoes, and I got video of that too. I'll probably post it on my social media. But it was good. So the actual making of the volcanoes was really good. We got to see some stuff shoot up out of the off of their projects and stuff, and it was good. But I realized that I had not taught anything about tectonic plates in that project. It was just, we're gonna make stuff blow up out of a volcano. You made pointless, extremely pointless, and I know that now. But I felt real bad. I felt bad for maybe 2 or 3 years after that, because I felt like I cheated those students. You know what I mean? But now, being that I'm an assistant principal now, and got really got a lot better at teaching, I kind of redeemed myself and made myself. I made a bet with myself to say, everything that I teach from now on, I'm going to do it with fidelity. I'm going to be extremely intentional about it, and I'll never, ever make that same mistake again. And that's what I did. So you tell me about something that you did that didn't go as you planned.
That's a lot of things, actually. Let's see. One of my projects that I've done is the surveyor project, and that's the chapter where kids are like creating scatter plots, learning how to gather information, analyze it, and interpret it. So they had to come up with 2 categories that their data could be numerical. So let's say shoe size and your height. So each kid would get a number, and all the kids would have to go and ask every kid in the class, hey, what's your shoe size, what's your height, or whatever category they chose to do. And then they would put it into a table, take that information from the table, put it into a chart or a scatter plot, and then put it into a 2-way table. And it was a mess, because one, kids didn't know how to talk to each other. Just simply ask them questions and then write it down, or remember, hey, you're number 1, so let me put your information in the number 1 box, not the number 2 box. And then they didn't know the X and Y axis, and I assumed that they did know. And it's a very basic concept, but yeah, like most of my kids was like, where does my information go? And so I didn't think about, hey, maybe I should not assume that they know something, that maybe I should go ahead and just be like, they don't know it, let me do it anyway, and then it'll make the project a little bit more easier and understandable. But that was a super challenge, because everybody needed my help. And for projects, I like for them to be on their own. Like, I will assist and, facilitate and, make sure they're on the right track. But I can't be like, this is the X, this is the Y, and do it like multiple times. And then it's just too much. So, yeah.
And I think that's a lesson that everybody can learn. Yeah. Assumptions can be deadly.
Very.
Oh my God. Like, especially as a teacher, that is a pitfall for any educator, assumptions. And I think with students too, they can't make assumptions about who you are. You know what I mean? Because there's just like rumors spread about kids. Oh, this kid is a bad kid. This kid does this and that. Students, they also talk about teachers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And on the way here this morning, I actually got a message from one of my kids on Snapchat that I taught my first year teaching, Lil Kel. And we'll talk about that later. But I say that to say, kids will talk about who you are. And then as the cycle continues, there's going to be those kids that come into your classroom and treat you based off of what other kids have told them. Yeah. You know what I mean? Even down to parents. Parents will have an assumption about you because you taught their kid 2 or 3 years ago. Now they have another kid coming back into your classroom again. Oh, I don't like that teacher because she did this, and that with XYZ kid.
Right.
So, assumptions, man, I think what you said earlier, having a clean slate, keeping that slate clean with every single kid, is extremely important.
Yeah, definitely.
And I want to close out with one more question for you.
Okay.
If you ever encounter another teacher who has a reputation for being not so nice, let's just say that, being not so nice.
Okay.
What is your advice to that teacher moving forward? And also, I want you to answer the question, the same thing about a parent, because we hear rumors about parents too. This parent is crazy. What is your advice for that teacher who has that reputation? What is your advice for that parent that has that reputation?
For the teacher, I would just encourage them to have some self-awareness about them. I am big on self-awareness. And just kind of know how they're projecting themselves to either, their coworkers, students, or, admin or parents. But just have some self-awareness. Make sure they check whatever their home life situation is, right, like in the parking lot before they even get to the door. Because I know sometimes, like, students bring in their home life into school. Some teachers tend to do it too, and we just have to check ourselves and just know that, hey, this past weekend was a mess, but I can't allow it to be it on Monday, be in the classroom on Monday. You know what I'm saying? And then with parents, I would just be patient, be understanding. Compared to, your number of kids, teachers have up to 60 and 70 kids.
Right.
And we may not give your kid like 100% attention every day. But I trust and believe that, again, with the teachers that I work with and teachers around, that they give your kid attention. It may not be 100% all the time, but they give attention, and then they want your kid to succeed. I've never met a teacher that wanted to be like, oh, I want to fail this kid.
Right.
I want to do this kid harm. So I say don't look at us as the bad guy, but as like support, assistance, resources, because I mean that's what we're here. We're trying to make the next generation better than the last.
Yep.
So,
and I think people forget that teachers are humans too.
Yeah, and we make mistakes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But Ms. Glenn, I really, really appreciate you, man. I want to say thank you. And we're gonna end right there, guys. My social media tags are going to be man TPCPC. So if you want to have a conversation about anything that you heard in this episode, something that you agree with, something that you disagree with, reach out via social media. Let's have a conversation about it. Ms. Glenn, you want to give your social media tags again?
Instagram, Alexis.Taisha, and then same for Facebook.
Yeah. How do you spell Taisha?
Oh my goodness. Tyesha.
All right, guys, and with that, we are going.